Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Good evening. No? I was on before. I'm Robert Sterling, editor of the IJ. I want to welcome you all tonight. What a great turnout, and there are lots of people watching at home, so thank you for coming out. This is our fourth IJ Forums that we've taken on the road. We've been doing this for the last couple years in the studio, and we decided to come out and be with more people and give you guys a chance to see some of our guests and ask some questions. So I really appreciate you coming out. The show's going to go for about 40 minutes. Dick will interview our guests, talk to them about their positions on issues. Then for the last 20 minutes of this hour show, there will be questions from the audience. We have cards on the table in the back. Some of you have already given me your questions, but you wander back to that table, write down a question. We'll go through them. We'll pick out a handful of them that I'll give to Dick to pose to both of the candidates. I would prefer that you, in fact, I would encourage you to design your question so that each of them can answer it, and not just a question to one or the other. Anyway, with that, I'm going to turn over the show to Dick Spotswood, and take it away.
Robert, thank you. Welcome to IJ Forum, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you all here at the Nevada Unified School District headquarters. I'm Dick Spotswood, government and politics columnist for the Marin Independent Journal. Our Marin IJ Forum for May is devoted for the race for the Marin County Board of Supervisors for the Nevada Centered 5th Supervisorial District. Ballots are already in the mail, so the election is effectively underway under California's 1 month-long voting period. IJ Forum is a 60-minute program. My presence as moderator is to represent the IJ reader, the viewers at home, and you folks in the audience to bring these two fine people together and ask them some questions about policy issues that affect greater northern Marin County. We have two challengers, two candidates tonight. We have the challenger, Toni Shroyer, and we have the incumbent, Judy Arnold. I want to thank both of them for coming. It's just great to have you respond and be so cooperative and make this such an easy program, and it gets, frankly, such a good audience here in the school district tonight. We determined who goes first by a coin toss. We used Judy's coin, so we knew the coin was okay, but Toni won the coin toss. So the first question will go to Toni. Thereafter, my questions will alternate between the two of them. It's a conversation. This is not a debate. It's part of our effort to have a civil conversation about things which affects just about everybody in this room's life. So that's the theory tonight. There's not a particular time limit on an answer to a question, though to prevent boredom, I ask you to be succinct and to answer as easily as you can. I know there's a lot of passion here about this race. This is the only supervisorial race this year in Marin County. So I'm going to ask you after they answer a question to not say ray, hey, or boo, whatever. Just respect the conversation and we'll go on. After 40 minutes, as Robert said, we're going to pause for questions from the audience. Robert will sort them out, bring them up to me, and I'll ask them in the same alternative form. There's not going to be a conclusion. It's not a debate. It's not that type of format. And we're going to end pretty close to exactly 8 o'clock. So we're going to have an hour program, and that's the program. They both know the ground rules, and they both have some idea of the basic questions, but I reserve the right to ask follow-ups. So Toni's first, and Toni's first. And Toni, your campaign slogan is, there's a better way. Tell us about that.
Well, there's a better way of doing business. There's a better way of being a good steward of our tax dollars. There is a better way of transparency. I think it's important to follow the Brown Act, which is Democracy 101. I think it's important not to sue a resident for asking for a public record, that SLAPP suit that was mentioned in the IJ. I think there is a better way of listening to the people versus special interest groups. Oftentimes, people go up to a Board of Supervisor meeting. I watch them at night, and the decision is already made, Dick, before the people have even, really spoken. And we've seen that with the golf course and the outrage there. So I think the people need to have a voice. And if you follow the Form 460s, it really tells the story of who's funding, incumbents' campaigns. And one thing that's a better way with me is that I do not take a single dime from special interest groups. I am fully committed to the good people of Novato. I don't accept any money from PACs. It's all from individual donations because I want to have a level hand during conversations and negotiations, and I want to be beholden to nobody but the good people of Novato and Marin County.
Thanks, Toni. Judy, your slogan is, and you follow this in all your signs, is she gets it done. In the last 4 years in your term, can you name the top 3 things you got done?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I was chair of SMART for the last 5 years when it came in. I was chair of SMART for the last 5 years when SMART really became operational. And we started out with an institution that did not look like it was going to make it because it was filled with politics. And then we decided that we were going to treat this like a public works project. And we went to Sacramento. I knew the Secretary of Transportation from my work with State Senator John Burton. We talked to him. We showed them what we did, what our plan was, and we got the money to start this train. And we were the first company to practice and get approved for PTC, positive train control. That's the computer in the train that stops crashes. And Denver tried it, and they went too soon, and they had to pull back, and so did Hawaii. So we were the first one, and we have now, since August 25th, we have carried almost 500,000 passengers. And I think it's a success. We're proud of the work. We've ordered 4 more cars because of the passengers, because of the passengers there. So certainly I'm very proud of the work that we did in bringing the SMART train to Marin and Sonoma County. The second thing is we had a small library in Hamilton, of course, in southern Nevada, and they could not afford the rent increase. And so our board had 3 E's that we looked for when we made decisions: economy, environment, and equity. And when I was chair of the board, we added education to that. But there's not a lot that a county supervisor can do to affect education. But here's where it did work, and that is that we talked to the county librarian, and we found a place in southern Nevada, in Hamilton, twice as big as the other library, with enough room for an education center and even a maker space. And so that's something where the county and the county school district, because the Nevada Unified School District helped bring this about, that's an example of where we work together, which is really what I love to do. And the third thing, when I was walking precincts, you hear from so many parents, there's nothing for our kids to do. And you hear that from teenagers when you meet with them. And so when we had an opportunity, I worked with Parks and Open Space, and we got the Stafford Lake Bike Park done. And I don't know if you have been out to see it, but even if you're not a mountain biker or even a biker for weekends, you ought to see it because it's really spectacular. There's something for everybody: toddlers, teenagers, mountain bikers, and now we've put in another course for families. So I'm very proud of the Stafford Lake. I think Nevada should be proud of that because we really do bring people from all over Marin County.
Thanks, Judy. Toni, 4 years ago, you lost very narrowly a race to Judy. The 2 ran against each other 4 years ago. This is the second volume of that race. During those 4 years, can you name one major issue on which you would differ from Judy's stand during that period of time?
You're only giving me one? Okay, no, I know it's one. And I would say that's Measure G without a doubt. Measure G was really telling what the good people of Novato want and don't want. And for those who don't remember, that was the flood tax in November. It was the establishment versus the people. And I was one of the proud signers, one of the five that pushed back against the establishment. And we were saying, you can't find, you, the Board of Supervisors who put this tax on the ballot, you can't find $1.2 million out of the budget for flood control, which is public safety. And depending on where you live, Dick, in Novato, you can have up to 12 add-on taxes in addition to your basic tax. And these taxes, if you're a renter, landlords pass them on to the tenants. So it makes housing affordability even that much difficult. So what happened was, and I'm boots on the ground, so I'm really in the community, and people are hanging on by their fingertips, Dick. We're going to see a lot more foreclosures. We're going to see short sales. And people said enough's enough, and that was our slogan. And we had signs, and we were outspent about 15 to 1 by special interest groups, and we defeated that measure by 66%. It needed 2/3 to win, and we stomped them, and we said no. And that was the good people of Novato saying enough's enough.
Thanks, Toni. Judy, 4 years. What's the biggest frustration you've had on the Board of Supervisors during the past 4 years?
Okay, and I'd first like to respond to the Measure E. Can I do that now?
Well, absolutely, and to explain to the audience, we've indicated to both of our good panelists tonight that if there's a question or a statement made the other person made they'd like to respond to, the time to do it is to say right now, as Judy's just done.
Thank
so
you.
that's
Okay.
pursuant to our rules.
I'll be brief. Measure E failed, and there's no question about that. And Measure E was a combination of City of Novato, County of Marin, Sanitary District, Water District. And they had been meeting for 2 years to try to solve the flooding in Novato. Novato has the second worst flooding in all of Marin, the first being, of course, the Ross Valley. And so it would have been $47 a year for a parcel. And that would have done a lot because the amount of money for flood control hadn't been raised since the 50s. And it didn't pass. There was a lot of misinformation about it. There were no other sources of funds that the county could have used. But what really makes me sad is that I know the families that flooded year after year. I was there in the big New Year's flood. I took people down to Roast House when it was open to give them a hot meal because water came up through their registers, and some were in wheelchairs. So I feel very sorry for these people. The county is going to be working hard to find grants and to supplement what this would have done. But I think there's an equity issue here with the families that go to work every day and don't have time to walk precincts. Okay.
Your biggest
frustration? You know, my biggest frustration is also my saddest, and that is when we lost Dietrich Stroh unexpectedly. He's like the father of Novato. Has lived here till he was 6, and he was chair of the Novato Theater Board of Directors, and was doing an amazing job and one that we counted on, and we were making headway in that, and then he suddenly died. We also lost an executive director, Bernice Baeza, who was given the first permission to come and let her vision be the one for the downtown theater. And then we had another board president besides Diet that got too ill that had to resign. So that was frustrating to us. In spite of all that, we have secured almost $1 million in pledges. We are working with the city of Novato to come up with a partnership for opening the theater, and I'm not giving up on it.
Thanks, Judy. Toni, every year auto traffic in Marin County, particularly on US 101, but on the artillery roads to 101, gets worse and worse. If you were elected to the Board of Supervisors, what do you think could be done to mitigate the traffic problem that everybody complains about?
Well, I need to get back to respond
sure.
to my opponent, following the rules here. We need to stop the blame game. And Measure E, we, the voters, had already passed Measure AA. So it was a misguided tax stick, and it was considered maybe a double tax to some. The supervisors can find pet projects to buy, such as a golf course, but they don't have enough money to put $1.2 million a year into flood control. So it's all about priorities. In regard to this theater, that was my opponent's number one, priority, and give me 4 more years to get it done. Well, it's still a hole in the ground. And a businesswoman would never have started something that you can't finish. You have to acknowledge cost overruns. Maybe you don't have such a grand project, but you don't leave us eyesore for years for the people to look at. So turn those pledges into actual dollars and actually get it done. With regard to the Narrows, or the 101, again, let's get it done. 4 years ago, my opponent said, give me 4 more years. I got to finish the Novato Narrows. They're still working on it. And what we need to do is we need to have an honest and transparent government. And that's something we don't have. And we need to stop directing those funds that were for the Narrows into other transportation buckets. So bottom line, we need to finish the Novato Narrows. And also, let's talk about jobs. We need jobs in Novato so that we can get people off the 101. And if people work in Novato, they live in Novato, they don't have to, get into traffic, and they can walk to work and bike to work and take public transit, all over Novato. So if we have better jobs and not the sea of lease signs, we can solve some of those traffic problems.
Toni, I'm going to follow up with a little bit about public transit there and ask you if you think the level of public transit in northern Marin with buses, Golden Gate buses, with SMART, whatever, is adequate. And if not, what do you suggest to improve it or up it?
Well, that's a very good question. Our transit for our commuter buses are excellent. Our buses for our public schools, for Sinaloa, the junior highs, and the 2 high schools are very good. But what the people are seeing is empty buses throughout the day, roaming around back and forth, adding to our traffic problems and to our pollutions. So the better solution for that is, and those buses don't go into neighborhoods, and we're built in a kind of a suburban area, is the better way to do that is to contract out with companies like Novato Taxi, which is local, or Ubers, and have shuttles and have people go where they need to go so that we can stop having buses go round and round and empty throughout the day. It's a big problem.
Thanks, Toni. Judy, same question to you. Traffic, there's not been a debate. We haven't talked in the county of Marin about traffic. So what are your thoughts on what can the county do during your next 4 years, if you're elected, to mitigate the bad traffic we have today?
There's no doubt that Novato has a problem with congestion, and we all know that, and it's one of the biggest complaints that we hear about. I see several things that we can do. For those of you who commute in the mornings in the summertime, you have to admit that it's a dream commute because there are less cars. And why are they less cars? Because school's out. So much of the traffic on 101 is the school traffic. And Marin Transit Systems, which is our local bus service that works along with Golden Gate Bridge, has come up with pilot projects, one in Novato that deals with Sinaloa and San Jose, another one in Tiburon, and they're working out incredibly well. Schools don't want to run yellow buses anymore, and so we're trying to come in as an organization to fill that void with buses, Marin Transit buses, but that also paginate with school bells. And I think it's working, and I think we need to do more. Also, Highway 37, those of you who travel back and forth from there, you know how bad that is, and you especially know how bad it was when Nevada 37 was flooded for 21 days last year. I am on a committee with supervisors from Napa, Solano, Sonoma, and Marin, and we are looking at fixing Highway 37. The first segment to look at is the one from Vallejo to Lakeville Road. That's in Napa and Sonoma. because that's only 2 lanes. So they're looking at the money to fix that, and they're looking at, do we want to raise the road? How do we want to do it? But I said, look, that's great, and I support that, but you can't fix that, segment B, and then try to get to 101 when it's flooded. So I would like you to add money for an environmental study for Marin to do on the flooding. And I just got word from Supervisor Jim Spearing from Solano that they are going to do that. So we're going to be added into that to deal with the flooding, which so much of it is the levees that are in disrepair. And as far as the narrows go, you know, we're not a selfish county. We understand that we need to have cooperation. And so Marin can fix the narrows, but if going to the Petaluma Bridge and beyond to 116 isn't fixed, that's not going to help much. So in the first round, Sonoma was ready to go with fixing their side from San Antonio up to Petaluma. Marin just finished the San Antonio road where we raised it, there'll be no more flooding. Now we're preparing to start the next phase, which will complete the Marin side of the Novato Narrows. And that is, it will be a carpool lane from DeLong down to Roland, and it will be a carpool lane from the landfill past the San Antonio Road. So we're working together, which is something that you learn to do when you have to govern, especially when you have another county there.
Thanks. Toni, people that read my column know that one of my passions is wildland fire and the problem that it's caused to Sonoma, Santa Rosa, and Napa County. Nevada and northern Marin is susceptible to wildland fire. In 1923, a fire ran from Ignacio all the way through the Ross Valley to Tamales Bay. Every part of Marin is susceptible. Are we doing enough now to mitigate the danger of wildland fire? If not, what should we do? I know there's a lot of plans on the table, but what should we do in a practical fashion?
Well, the question was, are we doing enough? And the answer is no. And I just wanted to segue, because one of your columns, and they're really good about the wildland fires, is you said we need to stop all these studies. So my opponent just mentioned another study on the 37, and I was wondering how much this study is going to cost the taxpayers. What under my, if I'm elected, I'm going to make sure that we tap into experts that are residents that are happy to do it pro bono. But are we ready for this fire? Absolutely not. And you brought up some really good points, like our open spaces. And this is a concern. There's a lot of people in Marin County, Kenfield too, and Novato, where they're living right up to the open space. And the vegetation is excessive. The dead wood is excessive. And the County of Marin is not making this a priority. They're always crying poor and not adequately dealing with this vegetation. I know that there's been some abatement of Scotch broom, but there's also native plants that are very, very flammable. Also, we have to get PG&E to be a part of this conversation. And Sonoma County, there is talk that some of those dead timbers and trees were on live wires. So we need to get PG&E involved in these conversations too. Also, we need to take responsibility as homeowners. Make 100 yards. I mean, you said this all in your column. I recommend everybody to read it. But to have 100 feet of defensible space. Jim and I get our trees trimmed by an expert every year, and make sure to use chipper days, and we need to make sure that chipper days are adequately funded, because that's very important. So, and also a voter suggested goats to use into our Marin County open spaces, because Sleepy Hollow uses goats, and it's a great way, and they eat everything. Not tin cans. They don't eat tin cans, but they eat a lot.
Judy, fire is the greatest threat to life and property in the county of Marin. And can't be. I know you've gone up to Sonoma and seen the devastation in Coffee Park and in by Fountain Grove.
Right.
A lot of plans are on the table. What should be done that's not being done? to save lives and property in northern Marin?
I think what is being done is filling the gap that you speak of. And I think the key is fire-wise communities. Marin has, and Novato has 3 communities here that have worked with the fire department, seen what they need to do to prevent a fire, and then they do it, and they become a fire-wise community. This has to be done on the individual level, neighborhood by neighborhood. And we went after the fires, the fire chief and I asked Supervisor Rodoni to come with me because of the fire danger in West Marin. And we went to Sonoma and met with the first responders. And it was a very informative meeting, and what we saw was that Marin has really done a lot, probably more than Sonoma did, in being ready to combat a big fire. Then we've come back, and Dennis and I are going to go before the Board of Supervisors, and we're going to suggest changes that they can make to make us more aware. Should there be sirens ringing in the night? Should there be bells? Should there be, how should we let people know that something's coming, because they didn't know in Sonoma? That's being looked at. And PG&E is helping us, and they're going out to fix a lot of the transformers which sparked during the Sonoma fire and caused really the spread of that. So I'm chair of the Disaster Council, and I've worked with first responders for 4 years on this. And I think we're prepared, and I think if we get out in the neighborhoods more, I'm delighted to see that Novato had evacuations in 3 of their neighborhoods last weekend. We also have a Get Ready program. So we have the materials, and now we need to go out into the neighborhood, which is what we're planning on doing, organize captains, and create a list for seniors who are not able to get out of their house and need help, so that we have a registry to contact them in case of fire.
Judy, let me ask a follow-up just on fire. Of all the brush that's in the Wildland interface, that's the land between areas where people live here in the forest, what can we do to accelerate the clearance of dead trees, dead tan oaks, eucalyptus, manzanita, the highly flammable
Yeah, right.
problems we have?
Parks and Open Space does 2 things. Number one, they will go to houses that back up to open space, and they will say, you have permission to create a 100-foot perimeter around here, and that's what you should do to make it safer. Then further up from that, Parks and Open Space does have a budget. They do go in and clear out brush. And you're right, there also have goats in Sleepy Hollow that are working. So when they had the big fire in Sonoma, the firefighters told me that if they went to a house that did not have a 100-foot perimeter cleared around it, they wouldn't even bother to save it. And those that did, they did. So that's very important, and teaching the people that back up to open space this is critical.
Toni, I want to ask about housing. It's been a big issue in California. We've had some state legislation that hasn't gone far, but it's been a topic in Sacramento. I know it's been a topic in northern Marin, the whole North Bay. What's your thoughts on housing? Does Marin need more housing? Does it need more affordable housing? Does it need more market rate housing? And if so, the $64 question is, where to put it?
Okay, I need to respond back to the open space. I know that is a big pet peeve of yours, and the county is not doing enough for flammable material and vegetation and trees to abate that. So that is a huge problem, and we need to do a lot better. So back to housing. Yes, could we be doing more? Absolutely. Where to put it is an excellent question. I want to commend and applaud Novato because we are the leaders in affordable housing. We have approximately about 20% of the population, yet over 33% of affordable housing. Now, Dick, this doesn't include all the Section 8 vouchers, too, so we are leaders. Where to put it? I like local control. I believe the people need to be part of the conversation and have a seat at the table. I don't agree with the state telling us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. We know our community much better than they do. Where to put it? I was on the ad hoc group on the last planning the housing element of the city of Novato, where we came to some sites that weren't probably perfect for everyone, but it was something we could live with. So I think it's important that the community and the people get involved. Where to put it? What's come up in the community is Birkenstocks, because that is where public transit could be going to. Now, I don't know if that's Carl Birkenstock's idea, what he wants to do with his property, and we'd have to be cognizant of people's, personal private property, but and last I heard he was in Germany and hard to get a hold of. But that would be a great place because that would not be disturbing any current neighborhood, wouldn't be dramatically changing it. If Carl was happy to have that conversation, I'd be happy to meet with him as well with other people. But I think that's a great place to start. It has infrastructure, and that's one place that would be a great place. Yeah.
It's in northern Nevada, which is the site of the now vacant fireman's office building. Giant parking lot building, which may be or may not be obsolete, depending on who you talk to. You're a realtor, you probably know better than I do, which is what it is in the commercial world. What do you think about the future use, the proper future use of the fireman's fund?
Well, I have an opinion, but it's not about me. It's about the good people of Novato, and I think the neighborhoods really need to have that conversation. Also have that conversation with the owners or the investors. I haven't pulled title, and I can, tonight and find out who owns it. But to have that conversation so that bureaucrats, so that the government isn't telling us what it will be, but have the community involved and not having the state be involved. What's come up many times on Fireman's Fund, which is kind of neat, is that people want dog parks. More dog parks, and there's a great baseball field there. And so people would like to have dog parks there. But what I would like to see was personally, if I had my magic wand on the Fireman's Fund, I think it would be great to have some live workspace, have some great tech companies come here, provide tax incentives like New York has and bring companies here. We're seeing a sea of for lease signs, and if we could get tech companies to come to the Fireman's Fund with these incentives and have housing too, if the community wanted this, and come up with a great plan that I think people would really like and support.
It sounds obvious, but what do you mean by live workspaces?
Oh, well, sometimes people live upstairs and they have the kind of like the old schools and, down in the 1940s and 30s and stuff, and then the work is below. So it's lofts and stuff. Very trendy for the millennials.
Judy, housing. Everybody says we need more housing. Well, not everybody, but the state of California certainly says we need more housing. My question is, do you think we need more housing? Market rate, affordable, combination? And if so, where do you put it?
I think a mix is always better. But I want to say that when Senator Scott Wiener brought his two bills up, saying that local government would have no say in what they wanted to do for building housing, Marin County was one of the first counties to oppose that, as was the League of California Cities, as was CSAC, the county organization. We cannot have Sacramento dictating what Novato and the county are going to look like. So we've opposed it. I think that probably it failed, so it's nowhere. I think he's probably going to come back. He probably wanted to do this at the very beginning, to do something shocking, and then is going to try to backpedal. But we're on it, and we're listening, and we're watching. building housing in Marin and developments is not easy. And sometimes it's a disaster like the old Wind Cup. And that we don't want, which is huge, which was never planned, and has very few affordable units in there. I think some great examples in Novato, and I'm so proud of Novato. When I go around there and look and I see the mix between multifamily housing and neighborhoods, it just blends, and one doesn't stick out like the other. And I think I really applaud what all of the city council people did years back to the city. I think Habitat for Humanity is a great way to go for building housing. Novato was the first one to approve it, and then they did a second one, and we're just like stars in the affordable housing milieu. Warner Creek for seniors is also a great project, and it's near. The seniors can walk to the shopping center. They can get something at 7-Eleven. I mean, it's a good thing. Another thing that the county is saying, look, we don't have any applications for mixed rate housing here. Let's see what we can do about preserving what's left, what we have. And there's the Coast Guard housing in Point Reyes Station, which we are in conversations right now with the federal government for the county to take that over and use that for affordable housing in West Marin. We looked at, we started a landlord meeting trying to convince landlords to rent to affordable housing seekers. And we have 40 new landlords that are willing to take Section 8 vouchers. And the way we did that was we said, look, the county will come in, we'll establish a 24-hour hotline. So if a landlord has any problem, they can call that line, and we'll be there to help. We're going to put money aside so that if there is damage to your apartment, we will help clear that up. And we're getting new landlords in daily that want to join that. So I think that's another issue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Judy. Public employee pensions. The grand jury last year said that the total deficit of all cities, county, and special purpose districts within the county of Marin was $1 billion. Are we doing enough to pay those down? What would you do if you're elected to the Marin County Board of Supervisors to mitigate that problem?
Well, the answer is no, we're definitely not, or the Board of Supervisors are not doing nearly enough. But I want to get back to housing. Golden Gate Village is public housing in Marin County. The Board of Supervisors are in charge of Marin, or oversees the Marin Housing Authority. Marin Housing Authority are the managers of Golden Gate Housing. People are living in squalor. It is inhumane. It's horrible. So the supervisors are having a set of rules for the mom and pop landlords and then a set of rules for themselves. And the good people of Marin City deserve safe housing and habitable housing. And I encourage anybody here to take a field trip with me to Golden Gate Village and see how oppressive it is. This is how our county has treated single mothers, veterans, and the working class. So they need to own the fact that they've been slumlords, and they need to start cleaning it up. And under my watch, that never would have happened because I follow I follow the code in housing, and I believe that everybody deserves a safe place to live. Now, with regard to pensions, we need to start with honesty, and we have to realize that it's really a lot worse than it is. We hear about Moody's ratings. Well, we know what happens with great Moody's ratings. Lehman Brothers in 2008 had a great Moody's rating, and then that was 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 12 noon, they were bankrupt. So we need to stop kicking the can down the road, or should we say the county needs to stop kicking the can down the road, because right now our children will be taking on this debt and paying for services that we took. So we need to have some hard conversations, and one seat at the table, the taxpayer taxpayer does not have a seat at the table, Dick, when these negotiations are taking place. And some people that are having the negotiations that are with the county get a pension. So there's conflict of interest there. And so I have not accepted a dime from any union. So I come with a level hand. I'm beholden to the good people of Novato, and I'm not beholden to any special interest groups. So we need to start following PEPRA. We need to stop the wasteful spending and put that towards our pensions. Don't buy a golf course, don't buy $1 million worth of furniture and office space, and put that towards our pension liabilities. And I also think our retirees should be a little concerned, because with this freewheeling spending, we don't print money at the county, and they may not have money down the road. Sonoma County had to do some hard conversations, as well as Mendocino did, and they had to go after the retirees' medical benefits. So this is bad, and we have to deal with it.
Judy, pensions. Every county in the state of California has to deal with the problem. It's getting a drain on to fund the pensions. It's draining other services. What would you do in the next 4 years to help address the over $1 billion deficit, not just the county, but all the agencies in the county of Marin, special districts that all have?
First, I want to do a quick rebuttal to the Golden Gate Village and to the golf course, which has come up. Let me tell you about the Golden Gate Village in Marin City. There's no question. It's over 60 years old. It's for where the public housing lives, where people on public housing live, and it has disintegrated and not been kept up. Our board hired a new executive director, and he grew up in the projects in Chicago. He came to Marin and he said, I know how to fix this. We're going to rehabilitate the public housing that's there. No one that's living in it will have to move. Their rent will stay the same, but we're going to do what they've done in Chicago, what they've done other places, and we are going to build market rate and affordable housing, and so that you have a community that's mixed. HUD only gives our county $500,000 to take care of the housing. This is like a $60 million project that has to be done. So what we're going to do is a public-private partnership, and that's what we're working on. My opponent went down to the Golden Gate Village and took photographs of units that are not even there. She took a picture of a rusted washing machine when no unit in public housing can have a washing machine, and it wasn't the unit that they had in the laundry room. There was a rat problem. First of all, I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hand, but my guess is 98% of the people here have had rats in Marin County. It's what happens. There were plum trees in Marin City, and the plums dropped. That attracted the rats, and several of the units there they're boarded up so the rats could get in. That's all been taken care of. Marin Housing Authority takes care of everything that comes. We are good landlords. So that's the Golden Gate Village. The second thing is the golf course. Two things about that. Number one, I agree that when I voted on the first vote to look at stopping the golf course or stopping golf after a period of time and seeing what the people wanted, I do not think that the board was transparent as much as it should be. And when the vote came back again before the board, I was the lone vote to say I don't approve of this because of the transparency and also because they were going to use $1.4 million in general fund money. The rest of the money is out of Measure A, which is dedicated to acquisition. So that's fair. But I don't want general fund money to going to this. So I voted no on that. I think that if you're going to be transparent, and I think if you're going to, really study what's happening, my opponent owns property less than 500 feet from that golf course. If she were on the Board of Supervisors, she would have to recuse herself. So saying that she would stop it, she would have no voice there. She'd have to leave. So I think, it's important to get our facts right. Okay, housing, no. Traffic, pensions.
$1 billion deficit in pensions.
That's why we, sorry.
Marin County has paid off $240 million in the pension, the retiree. We also have created a $100 million health trust for retirees. We have a AAA bond rating. We have filled almost every requirement of PEPRA. And the grand jury just recently issued a report that said that Marin County was solid, was doing it right, and we're going to just have to keep on doing it. I totally agree. It's gotten out of control. Do you know that in the mid-'90s, the state PERS, which is a state pension, they gave the people who had signed up for their pensions a 2-year holiday. They didn't have to pay into their pensions because the economy was so healthy. Certainly, we've got to go back to trying to get a healthy economy here. I was delighted to read in the paper this morning that Glassdoor just got bought for $2.8 billion. They're a member of the Marin Economic Forum, which I helped form. We've got to bring in good jobs. We've got to have a community that comes together, that can live here, that can work here, and we're going to that's what's going to help the pension.
I have some questions from the audience. To make it interesting, I'm going to have Judy start these and Toni will follow up.
Wait, Dick, I know it's important to have questions, but that was a long explanation, and I was accused of things that are not true. I'd like you to ask Melvin why he has mold in his apartment. That was an appliance that was old. I have had people come visit me, and for you to say those are made-up pictures is false and inaccurate, and the Rifkin Law Group has sent you and the rest of the Board of Supervisors a scathing letter, and you have read it with the squalor and the inhumane conditions that you have allowed to have the poor live in, and you just said you are a good landlord. Shame on you.
Go ahead.
No. Well, first of all, it just have to depend upon the audience to ask a really good question to start off with.
Okay.
These are short questions, and I'd like to have short answers so we can get as many of them as possible. Judy, we're going to start with you. Unsigned, or all unsigned. What's the best idea your opponent has put forward? You'll have the same question.
I don't know her very well. She used to call my office a lot. And I know one time we helped her get a sheriff's deputy to monitor the 4-H picnic. I think that was a good idea. Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot we agree upon.
Toni, what's the best idea your opponent has put forward?
I think, in fairness, that she really does want to complete the Novato Theater. I don't think she wants to have it a hole in the ground and an eyesore, and I don't think she wants to blame people for it not getting done. I think she wants to take responsibility of it, but really can't. So I would say I think her passion is for the Novato Theater, like it is of mine and others. I just don't think she knows how to do it. So I'd applaud her for her passion.
Once again, briefly, some of these questions now could take forever. Don't. Name 3 things you would advocate to address homelessness in Novato. Same question. Go to
I would advocate the Housing First model. And that really does cover more than 3 things. And the amazing thing about the Housing First model is it is a cooperation between Novato, San Rafael, and the county, homeward bound, St. Vincent's, and people are coming together and they're saying the way to deal with homelessness is you take the people that need it the most, that are drug addicted, that have mental health problems. You provide a place to live for them and then give them the services. And it's working. And we have found 40 homes or 40 dwellings for people to live, and they're still going. So I think the Housing First model is a good one. I also want to say, going back to the comment about the theater, there are 50 volunteers that have been volunteering to bring this theater about for the last 4 years. My opponent has never been seen and never called about it.
We've really behaved ourselves so far. So let's both sides can. Toni, what's your thoughts on homelessness? What 3 ideas to address it in Novato?
Okay. My 3 ideas. One is Homeward Bound does it right. They are the model. They should be the model for the state. I can't applaud them enough. I completely support them. They are having a new project that's being proposed that I believe will go through, and I'm sure the community will support it. And that's a 50-unit complex on their 15-unit housing on their actual property now, which has dilapidated buildings. 25 units will be for the veterans and 25 for others. And so I think they have a great model, and I would like to see them throughout Marin County, Homeward Bound. With regard to the San Geronimo Golf Course, I've been totally transparent about, my Form 700s, but also I didn't realize that my opponent was the FPPC, because I would have asked them this is all hypothetical because I wasn't on the Board of Supervisors, but if I could have voted against the golf course, I would have. But if the FPPC said I couldn't vote if I was on the board, then so be it. But also, it's easy to change your vote, which my opponent did, when you know that it's going to pass, and it is election year.
Different topic. Again, from the audience. Judy, what do you consider the biggest takeaway from the defeat of Measure E, the flood zone tax? The biggest takeaway.
Okay. First, let me just quickly say I'm with Winston Churchill, who said whoever does not change their mind doesn't change anything. Now, as far as the biggest takeaway,
what did you take out of that? What lesson learned from the defeat?
Well, the lesson learned was that we need to be more proactive in getting the word out to the community. Again, I have to turn to Dick Spotswood. He was chair of the Flood Control Board. He was the one that was going to handle this campaign, and then he left. And so we need to reach people and get their concerns if we go for this again. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. What we're doing now is we're applying for grants. And we are in a good position for grants because we have this cooperation of 4 agencies that are working hard on this. And also, the biggest takeaway is we just have to please keep in mind those people that have their house flooded every year when we have big rainstorms, and try to do what we can to help them.
Thanks, Judy. Toni, the Measure E lost, and the community presumably took something out of it, learned something. What did they learn?
Well, the community has learned that enough's enough, that they're tired of being taxed, that they want their hardworking tax dollars to be spent wisely. They want the county, and especially the Board of Supervisors, to put public safety first, and that's includes flood control. So they have also realized that grassroots efforts can push up against the establishment, and the establishment is not always right, and that it is, and that was the voice of the people. So it just shows you that grassroots efforts can work, and the people are pretty smart here.
Judy, good question. You're a member of the SMART board, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a SMART question.
Okay.
How will you work to get the downtown Novato station completed, or would you rather prefer it not be built?
Oh, no. No, I think the downtown Novato station is critical, and I supported that from the very beginning. I don't have a say on it. This is a Novato City Council. It's in their purview, but anything that I could do to help bring that about, what we're finding is Smart got itself built during the recession. They took a chance and they said, we're going to try to build it. As a result, they were able to save millions and millions of dollars because there was no building during the recession. Now that's over. Now the prices are up. And so we have to deal with that. We have to see where we can find the money. If we could have a theater and a downtown, and Smart stopping downtown, that would be one of the best things to ever happen in Novato, and I support that.
Well, but the question is, how will you work to get it done?
Well, I'm going to work to get it done just the way that I work to get the money to go to Larkspur, and the way I work to get the money to go to Windsor, and I'm going to work to try to find funding to bring that about, and looking to MTC.
Tony, the same question. Do you support building a smart station in downtown Novato? And if so, how would you work to get it built?
Well, just let me respond to what my opponent said. Getting the money and getting the money and getting the money is from the taxpayer. And the taxpayer has a finite amount of money and not an infinite amount of money. And so I think we need to be cognizant of that. With the regard to the downtown, from my understanding, Dick, it has single tracks, not double tracks, so it couldn't really stop. So you can't have a stop on the downtown, yet you have the other two stops, San Marin and Hamilton. So I find that rude. I really do. And so I'm concerned about the cost overruns by a couple of $1 million. And so we need to have a hard look of transparency and also the cost overruns. And most importantly, the city of Novato is supposed to be picking up the tab. And I don't think they have that money.
As we're getting toward the close, interesting question. The county of Marin is aging.
Is what?
Aging.
Oh, aging. I thought you said aching.
And the question is, how do you propose Marin prepare for the so-called
Tsunami.
silver tsunami?
I am a member of was this for me first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a member of the Novato Senior Club, and I work with seniors, and I can tell you that seniors are ready for anything. The events that go on at the Margaret Todd Center are legendary, and we love it. We're sorry they don't fix the brunches anymore because Bruce likes their Ramos Fizzes. But the county declared this the year of the aging, and we are spending a lot of time and a lot of staff work on seeing needs for seniors, getting them involved. Getting them involved is one of the biggest things. And so we're going to have a silver tsunami, or we're going to dye our hair, one of the two.
Tony, other than dyeing hair, what should the county do? We're probably the oldest county statistically, and the numbers are such that I think 44% of the county Marin was 65 and over about 15 years. How does the county address that? What services could be provided to assist those folks who are aging in place?
Well, I live with my 82-year-old mother who runs circles around all of us, and she's here tonight. So I love adore my mom. So I'm very cognizant of our seniors. What can the county do to help our seniors? Well, in my profession, it's heartbreaking. I'm hearing from more and more seniors that are having to sell their homes that have lived here for 20, 30, 40 years because of the excessive taxes, and seniors are not exempt from bonds. And so the cost of living is so high. So these are our seniors that have protected our open spaces, who have nurtured our children, and they are being taxed out of this and feed out of our county because of cost of living. So I think we need to address those issues too. I've also done workshops on my own about senior parcel tax exemptions, helping our seniors navigate through that maze. We do have some great programs for seniors. The Margaret Todd Center is fantastic, and I think we need to work on better shuttle services for our seniors to so that they can have more mobility.
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And, great questions from the audience. We didn't get to all of them. Imaginative questions could come. Nobody asked about marijuana. I mean, that would be good. We should have some marijuana questions. Climate change, that did not come up. We'll have a chance to talk about that hopefully future. But we did have a chance to see both of you in action. I think it's I want to thank both of you, Toni and Judy, for taking the time and coming out and meeting your folks, asking them to vote for you. And I think people should remember it's a very difficult prospect. I see other candidates in the room and people who have gone through the process. The rewards are limited unless you regard satisfaction of a job well done when you finish. Both of you, I think, face that prospect, which is a good way to end. I want to thank the Novato Unified School District for the kindness of making this room available to us. I want to thank Novato Community Television for the terrific work they've done in making this possible. It's live online right now. It's streaming live. And it's going to be available on the IJ website very shortly, other cable channels, and I believe you will see a story about this in your Marin Independent Journal.
And I think we should applaud Dick
Yeah,
Spotswood in the IJ.
Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to vote.